Super quick instructions here. Step 1, make sure that you use a image that is set in inches. Make it 31 across by 35 high. So 31 here, 35. And oh my gosh, make sure the resolution here is nice and low, because with the width that size, if you make it like 300 pixels per inch, that file will be ginormous. 72 is fine, or type in a 100, whatever. Create.
I like the seal.
If you are going to use the eraser tool to get rid of backgrounds, then make sure that you've got the correct layer selected. Then choose the eraser tool. The eraser has different settings, just like the brushes. If I have it set to a hard brush, it looks like that when I erase. If I have it set to a soft brush, it'll look like that when I erase. Soft brush is great for blending things, but since you're trying to get rid of that edge around this soldier, you probably want a hard round brush, like so. You can also make your life a lot easier by zooming in close. The fancy fast way I did that was to hold down the Z key, and while I'm holding it down, click and drag, then let go of the Z key. You also could just click the zoom tool here, which will do basically the same thing as a separate click. By zooming in close, I can use the eraser tool more easily and more efficiently. Now, you don't have to do that all by hand. You can also use selection tools. I can quickly select part or all of the soldier, invert that selection, and then when I go to erase, I will not end up erasing the soldier by accident, because I only erase within what's selected. Of course, if I don't select the entire soldier, then I could end up erasing some of him by accident in this technique. So again, that was a use a selection tool, whichever ones you're familiar with. I was using the quick selection tool, which takes a little bit of getting used to, but it does make things a little bit magical. Ask your teacher or ask me for help if you're not sure about how to use that one. You can select something and then invert that selection using this menu here, inverse. And then that way you won't end up erasing that part. Let's say you realize you erased something that you didn't want to. What do you do then? Well, you could undo, but if it happened a long time ago, you might not want to undo all the work you did in between. Here's a bit of magic that you can use in case of emergency only. If you look back at your history, this funny tab here shows you all the things you could possibly undo. Now, I could undo all the way back. Oops, now you can see some other weirdness I was playing with in this picture. But you also can take a look at where the thing that you still needed existed, such as right here, mark it with this little funny checkbox, and then go to something called the history brush. This bit of sorcery lets you repaint in something from earlier on in the history selectively. So now I went back to my most recent change. All of my other erasing is back again. But with that little history box ticked there, I can now use the history brush and brush some of that stuff back in. On the other hand, if you want to use layer masking to hide the background instead of using the eraser tool, here's a slightly fancier thing you can do. This is optional. You can, oh here, wait a second. I'm going to hide something. There we go. Let's just focus on this. You can create a layer mask by clicking this little button down here. Now, if I don't have anything selected, the mask doesn't seem to do much, but when I brush onto it, it's basically a way of secretly hiding things. Notice that black squiggle has now shown up in this little tiny thumbnail here. That's your image of what the mask looks like, and black on that thing will hide something, and white will reveal it. I can switch that back and forth at any time, and that's the real secret to a layer mask, is that nothing is ever actually erased. It's only ever hidden. So that means you never have to worry about accidentally deleting something you meant to keep. It's always still there somewhere. Now, in this case, a layer mask that's totally empty is kind of useless. What I can do instead, in fact, I'll just delete this layer mask and remake one. Here's a neater way to make a useful layer mask. I can first select the person that I'm keeping. Get a reasonable good selection at least to save myself most of the work. It has over-selected a bit by her leg. It is over-selected a lot in here. I'm going to switch to the remove some of my quick select to get rid of a bunch of that. That's pretty dang close. And now I go to layer menu, layer mask, and reveal selection, which really means hide everything else. It will create a layer mask that is hiding the rest of the picture. So this is not too bad. If I looked carefully, I might see that it took away some of the hair she had sticking out here, so there's things I can fix. It also seems to have mysteriously left a little funny line here, but nothing is gone. I can still get it all back. It's in fact still there, it's just hidden. I can bring it back anytime I want, or I can switch my colors here using this nice little arrow. Switching between black and white is convenient for working with the layer mask. Erase again. Soft erasing is looking kind of weird here, so I'm going to go back to a hard round. Alright, so this does not look anything like spray paint, so here's some things we can do to make it look more like it was a spray paint stencil. We're going to reduce the number of colors, and we're probably going to make it black and white as well. It's not that we can't do color, but just following the theme of sort of the Banksy style stencils, it's often mostly black and white and just splashes of color to really draw the eye. So the way we do this, adjustments. It doesn't super much matter which layer, oh actually that's not true, it does matter which layer I've selected because it will place the adjustment above it. These adjustment layers, if you haven't used these before, it's a little strange. Instead of it just directly changing the picture, it's going to add a layer into the layers list that changes what's below it. So I'm going to try this with black and white first. And it made the entire picture black and white. I actually don't want the entire picture black and white, just the two added layers. And I want the background of the wall and the sidewalk to still be color. So what I can do with that is when you make the adjustment, it creates this properties panel here. The properties panel has things you can change. In this case, it's like how does it choose which parts are black or white? How bright should each color be that was originally there? It's a nice way to get the sort of contrast you want. But this part here is what we really want. This little toggle hiding here changes it so that the adjustment only affects the layer directly below it. So when you look at the layer here, when I click this button, when I click it, like so, it adds this little arrow thingy here, and you can see that the rest of the picture is now color again, including the picture of the girl. So now only that one layer that's directly below is attached to this adjustment, or I guess the other way around, the adjustment's attached to that layer. This does mean that I'll need to do a second one for the girl. So I'll do that now. Adjustments, black and white. Again, it defaults to affecting everything below it, so I need to click this again to attach it to her. And now I can do something similar with Posterize. Posterize is an adjustment which reduces the number of colors included in a picture. So with this already set to black and white, by adding Posterize, this will lower the number of grays that are used. So this will simulate something like, say, if somebody had done a stencil where they sprayed on 2 or 3 layers, a black and a gray and a lighter gray or something like that, or maybe a black, a gray, and a white. So when I choose Posterize, notice that it's Posterize, it's applying it to everything below. I want it to just be the next layer down. Now you might wonder, well wait, isn't it only posterizing another effect then, or another adjustment? Well, it does kind of snap down and it affects this group here now. So the default that it's got is 4, not bad. Probably 3 is more realistic, or even 2. 3 would look like this. We really just have black, white, and a single gray in between. 2 is just black and white. I find that most of the stencil work I've seen that really stands out, especially the Banksy works, they do include a gray of some kind. The white, we'll find a way to remove in a second. The speckles here we might want to remove by blurring the original image. This amount of detail doesn't look like a plausible thing someone would stencil. Nobody would actually stencil in all of these tiny little holes. But that's something we can play with later. So we can do the same thing to the picture of the girl as well. A blur effect can be found in the filter menu. Since anyone having to hand cut out a stencil isn't going to do that much tiny little detail. And you can play with the radius. Too much, of course, will turn it into a giant blob. Too little will make it look like nothing's happened. Somewhere in between, something that makes it look just a little bit more smoothed out. I still might want to make this concrete block look less detailed, but I'll work on that manually. Perhaps I'll brush it out, perhaps I'll use a smudge tool or one of these, the blur tools that are actually like by hand here. Another useful change we can make here is that often stencils would only spray on, someone doing a stencil work would only spray on the black and the gray layers. They wouldn't bother with the white. They would allow the white to just be created in your mind with the white space of the wall itself. We can do that with a bit of layer mode trickery. This strange list of things here, you can change from normal to all kinds of settings that are just different ways of combining a layer with what's below it. In this case, multiply is the one I want. Multiply, what multiply does is it literally does multiply the numbers of the colors together. What that means in this case is that white sort of disappears. It becomes just a copy of whatever is below it, whereas black still stands out as black. Doesn't make a huge difference on this soldier in my picture, but it will probably make a pretty big difference on the girl. So there it is. Obviously you can make a different twist on this. I'm choosing to take imagery of peace and have the girl throw it in the way of the soldier. If you want to take a completely different spin on it, that's fine. Find some way to take wartime imagery and change it to something that has a hopeful twist to it. Make it look interesting. Have fun.